Welcome to your weekly airplane news update. This is the week of November 15, 2021. We've got 4 topics this week, and the first one is a sad one. Astronaut Glen de Vries died in a plane crash. We'll talk a little bit about what he did, and unfortunately the event that happened earlier this week. The NTSB wants to investigate commercial space crashes, and that's a really interesting thing. And they have an NPRM out, and we'll talk about what happened. And then we'll go back to a story that we talked about, an MD-87 that was in Houston about a month ago, and they crashed at the end of the runway, could never take off. And the NTSB has done some preliminary investigation. We'll talk about their results. And then lastly, we'll talk about some Pilot Institute news, and then our Black Friday sale is right around the corner. So let's get to it. Okay, first story this week, pretty sad. Glen de Vries, he's an astronaut that was on the Blue Origin spaceflight back in October. He was alongside William Shatner. You've probably seen this in the news. I think we actually talked about it in this news segment as well. And unfortunately, he was killed in a small plane crash on Thursday in New Jersey. And this happened, this was a Cessna 172. They went down in a very heavily wooded area. And unfortunately, the instructor that was on board, his name was Thomas Fischer, also perished in the accident. The NTSB is investigating the crash. This is really sad news, especially when you have somebody who does these kind of amazing feats going to space and then eventually end up dying in a small airplane crash. So our thoughts goes to the family of everyone affected. The NTSB, speaking of the NTSB, they want to get involved into investigating commercial space crashes. And there is an NPRM. If you don't know what an NPRM is, it's a notice of proposed rulemaking. Before anybody can create new regulation, they have to put it out to the public. It goes into the Federal Register, which is the place where all the federal regulation kind of goes before it becomes active, before it becomes final regulation. And the NTSB wants to add language on procedures for commercial space investigation in the Code of Federal Regulation. 14 CFR is the Title 14 is where the Code of Federal Regulation is located for the FAA. Title 49 is the NTSB. And so they hope to get comments from the general population on this proposal right here. So if you're interested, if you have skin in the game, or if you want to share your ideas with the NTSB, this is the time to do it. The NTSB is really hoping to get ahead of the increase in commercial space flights, which we've reported quite a bit on, with 3 big companies trying to get up in space with those commercial space flights. So this will be interesting. I'm sure we'll have some final ruling eventually. Next story this week is the crash, the MD-87 crash at the end of a runway in Houston. This was about a month ago, and that was Houston Executive Airport. And this privately owned MD-87 crashed at the end of the runway. And the NTSB did their investigation, and the preliminary report is showing that the elevator was jammed. The elevator control was essentially jammed, preventing full response from the pilot's movement. And they reached rotational speed, and then once they reached rotation speed, the aircraft was unable to lift off because they were unable to do anything. Now, they said that the elevator controls were bent, and that's kind of an interesting thing because this is not something that happens without an external factor, an external force. The aircraft ended up 1,400 feet off the end of the runway. There were 23 people on board. They all escaped except 2 people were seriously injured. This is interesting because the article that I read about this said that there's no way to do a visual inspection on this part of the aircraft before the flights because there needs to be a flow of air over the elevators in order to see some movement. So this is an interesting design. But what they're also saying is that there was a crash that happened, I think, back in 2017, and the same type of accident happened. And they said that at that time, the elevators were bent because of wind gust on that aircraft. What they said in this crash is that the airplane apparently was dormant or on the ramp for 11 months before that flight actually happened. So it is possible with high gusting winds that this part of the aircraft was bent. They couldn't see it during pre-flight, and then this happened. So I'm not sure what the final report from the NTSB will be, but it sounds to me that this is the second crash of this nature. If this is exactly what happened, that something needs to happen to this airplane design because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, last story this week. This is a good one. We have our Black Friday sale going on starting today. And so if you are looking for a course, our private pilot course, our instrument pilot course, we also have drone courses available. All these available at an additional discount. This is the only time of year that we really do this. And I know people say that, and I really mean it. This is the only time of year that you're going to see these kind of prices. So we have lifetime access on all of our courses. So if you want to stock up, this is a good time to do it. And if you have any questions about courses, leave them in the comment. But you can go to pilotinstitute.com. You'll see the course prices over there. And if you have any comments, just let me know. But that's it. Subscribe. Like, and I will see you guys next week.